SpongeBob SquarePants is a show that will always hold a very special place in my childhood memories. I hate to date myself, but when SpongeBob first aired, I was only 4 years old. I literally don't even remember the first time that I watched this show. As far back as I can remember, I've always been a huge fan of SpongeBob. My friends and I were absolutely obsessed with SpongeBob when we were in elementary school. As a matter of fact, it was my favorite show until I was in like 6th grade. That's about the point where the quality of the show really took a sharp decline, but that's a topic for another video. The show really resonated with me as a kid, and it had a tremendous impact on my outlook on humor and how I reacted to situations. SpongeBob was always bubbly and positive no matter the situation, which was always an outlook that I tried my best to adopt in my everyday life. To this day, I try my best to spread positivity everywhere I go, and I mostly attribute that positivity to growing up with an influence like SpongeBob. I'd say that overall, SpongeBob SquarePants has had a positive impact on my life, and the early episodes of SpongeBob really invoke those positive, warm, and fuzzy feelings. Now, as I said earlier, there was a point when the quality of SpongeBob episodes took a very sharp decline, but we're not going to beat that dead horse. Instead, we're going to focus on the positive and go back to when SpongeBob was at his absolute best. I'd say that the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob were absolutely the golden era of the show, but of those 3, there's just a specific feel to the first season that's really hard to explain. Like, the show still had its quirks and was genuinely entertaining during season 2 and 3, but there's just something special about season 1 that really makes it stand out, and I can't quite put my finger on it. I have many great memories of enjoying season 1 of SpongeBob as a kid. I saw all of these episodes as they premiered and thoroughly enjoyed every single one of them. I remember a few years later when season 3 was airing and being circulated on Nickelodeon a ton, my mom took me to Hollywood Video and I rented a copy of SpongeBob season 1 on DVD and I watched it on repeat for days on end. These episodes were still on Nick, but they were playing an awful lot more of season 2 and 3 than they were of the season 1 episodes at the time, so it was a lot like watching these episodes for the first time all over again, and I was obsessed with it. Come to think of it, I think that might be my first exposure to nostalgia, and was probably a pivotal moment in making me the nostalgic millennial that I am now. To think, if I didn't have that experience, there's a chance that I never would have made this YouTube channel and had the opportunity to walk down memory lane with all of you guys. It's hard to explain the feeling of nostalgia and experiencing these early episodes of SpongeBob all over again. It's a feeling and memory that I personally cherish very deeply, and I really want to share that with people, and I want people to have that same experience and feeling that I had. That's why today on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're going to revisit season 1 of SpongeBob SquarePants and dissect it with the goal of figuring out what made it so unique, and to hopefully have you feel the same warm and fuzzy feeling that I get when I watch these early episodes of SpongeBob. Now, just to be clear, this video isn't like my top 10 episodes or anything. I'm going to be tackling these episodes in release order. Of course, I'm not going to be able to make it through the entirety of the first season because that would just take way too long, but drop a like on this video and leave me a comment letting me know if you want to see part 2 of this video. I don't want to see comments of people saying, how are you going to talk about season 1 and not bring up Rock Bottom? We're going through chronological order, and if you want to see me talk about those later episodes in the season, let me know in the comments that you'd like to see a part 2. Now, before we get too deep into things, super quick, I'd like to take a moment to thank you guys so much for everything and for all of your support over this last year and a half. As of me recording this video right now, it is March 25th of 2022, and we just passed 35,000 subscribers today on my channel, and it blows my mind to think that I've come this far in my YouTube journey. Back in October of 2020, when I first started this channel, I never thought that I would even reach 100 subscribers, and to have grown as much as I have is just incredible. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for subscribing and for being a part of my YouTube journey. Whether you've been here since the early days or if this is your first time seeing my videos, thank you just so much, and I really appreciate you being here. Now let's dive right down to Bikini Bottom and check out season 1 of SpongeBob.
Are ya ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh! Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
Now, right out the gate, I do have to point out that the original intro theme hits completely different with the OG animation. To this day, the theme song and the intro cinematic hasn't really changed at all, except for the animation style. The original hand-drawn animation just screams volumes of originality for this first season. The darker colors and the overall feel of the animation is just so perfect. I don't want to dwell too much on this because it's probably going to come up a lot throughout this video, but the hand-drawn animation just feels like it has a lot more heart put into it versus later seasons that were computer animated. First things first, we're going to jump right in with the episode that started it all, Help Wanted.
Ah, the sea. So fascinating. So wonderful. Here we see Bikini Bottom, teeming with life. Home of one of my favorite creatures, SpongeBob SquarePants. Yes, of course he lives in a pineapple, you silly.
This episode is where we are first introduced to SpongeBob. It all begins with SpongeBob waking up in the morning to the sound of his obnoxious foghorn alarm clock going off.
Today's the big day, Gary. Look at me, I'm naked!
This first introduction to SpongeBob as a character really sets the tone for what to expect out of this series. The way his alarm clock is just the most wall-shaking, loud, and obnoxious noise possible is absolutely hilarious, as well as the way he jumps out of bed and immediately gets naked and flies into his morning routine off of his diving board. It's just so random and I love it. SpongeBob gets dressed and does his gnarly workout. SpongeBob then runs straight to the Krusty Krab where they have a help wanted sign in the window to apply for a job. However, he gets a little nervous and he tries to leave, but Patrick shows up to pep talk him.
Who's a big yellow cube with holes?
I am!
Who's ready?
I'm ready!
Who's ready?
I'm ready!
Who's ready?
I'm ready! I'm ready!
Having been reinvigorated, SpongeBob runs right up to the Krusty Krab, and when Squidward sees him, he connects the dots and he sprints right inside to tell Mr. Krabs not to hire SpongeBob. I gotta stop and say this episode does such a great job of setting the tone for what we can expect from these primary characters. We see Squidward standing in front of the Krusty Krab trying to clean off graffiti. This scene shows that A, Squidward is a grump, obviously, and B, a lot of people don't like Squidward, as seen by how someone drew a picture calling him a loser. When he runs inside, we see Mr. Krabs standing behind the register just straight up smelling money. That's our first indicator of how greedy Mr. Krabs is, of course.
Permission to come aboard, Captain!
I've been training my whole life for the day I could join the Krusty crew.
And now I'm ready.
Right after opening the door, SpongeBob takes literally one step and falls, flying haphazardly all over the Krusty Krab before he lands right in front of Mr. Krabs and Squidward.
So, when do I start?
Well, lad, it looks like you don't even have your sea legs.
Mr. Krabs, please, I'll prove I'm fry cook material. Ask Squidward, he'll vouch for me.
No.
Mr. Krabs says that he's going to give SpongeBob a test, and if he passes, he will be a part of the Krusty crew. He tells him to go out and get a hydrodynamic spatula with port and starboard attachments and turbo drive and not to come back until he gets one.
We'll never see that lubber again.
You're terrible. A hydro what?
Just as SpongeBob is running off, we see a bunch of buses approaching the Krusty Krab.
Do you smell it? That smell. A kind of smelly smell. A smelly smell that smells smelly.
Mr. Krabs' pupils dilate massively when he realizes that anchovies are coming. Within seconds, the Krusty Krab is completely packed with anchovies. Things get very quickly out of control when Squidward asks for a single file line.
Down the hatches, Mr. Squidward! We're taking on water, Mr. Squidward! I want my mommy, Mr. Squidward!
Meanwhile, SpongeBob is walking into Bargain Mart to grab the spatula that he was tasked with getting. Just when Squidward and Mr. Krabs are crying and have given up hope, SpongeBob shows up to save the day.
Someone order a spatula!
That's right. One hydrodynamic spatula with port and starboard attachments. And let's not forget the turbo drive. Would you believe they only had one in stock?
SpongeBob flies into the kitchen and we get a good montage of him cooking up Krabby Patties to the tune of Tiny Tim's cover of Living in the Sunlight, Loving in the Moonlight. I really wish that I could play a clip of this montage right about now, but unfortunately I'm really worried about the copyright claims for music specifically, so we're just not gonna do that, but as I'm sure you know, the song fits perfectly to this episode. With all of the anchovies having been fed, they clear out of the Krusty Krab, and Mr. Krabs is incredibly impressed with SpongeBob's performance. Mr. Krabs goes to count all of his money, and just then Patrick comes in to order some food.
What would you like to order, Patrick?
One Krabby Patty, please.
Mr. Krabs! Mr. Krabs!
This episode is one that is a really important part of Nickelodeon history in my opinion. It's the episode that introduced us to these characters that we would come to love. It's the start of what would grow to become a massively popular cultural icon and would bring Nickelodeon to a whole new level as a network. This episode had it all. It did a great job of introducing us to the main cast and really served as a story that would give you most everything you needed to know to enjoy the rest of the series. All in all, I have to give this one a 10 out of 10. It serves as the perfect intro to the show. I'd say one thing that really makes this episode stand out is the montage of SpongeBob cooking the Krabby Patties. It bums me out that I can't show it with the audio because it truly just fits perfectly, but I'm sure you've seen it before. The animation sequence of the anchovies taking over the Krusty Krab while Mr. Krabs and Squidward are defenseless is also amazing. The way it went from a restaurant packed with anchovies shoulder to shoulder, then it turned into an ocean of anchovies was just kind of an awesome transition. And of course, how can I not talk about the opening sequence of SpongeBob starting his day? The overall randomness and obnoxiousness of SpongeBob's morning routine is absolutely great. This episode is just as good as I remember it being when I was younger. We're gonna move right on down the line and look at the next episode, Reef Blower. This episode is very straightforward. It starts with Squidward walking outside of his house and admiring how perfect his yard is. After Squidward kicks the shell to his yard, SpongeBob slides out of his window and goes into his garage, which I still to this day wonder if it really exists in SpongeBob canon. Like, obviously it's here in this episode, but I'm pretty sure we never saw SpongeBob's garage ever again. Even in the video games like Battle for Bikini Bottom, I'm pretty sure the garage wasn't there. SpongeBob comes out with his reef blower to get rid of the shell, but it doesn't really go as planned. After blowing Squidward, SpongeBob realizes that the pile of sand is now in his walkway, so he sets his reef blower to suck mode and tries to vacuum the sand up, but his reef blower dies. After straight up vacuuming the entire ocean, SpongeBob's yard is finally spotless, but it left Squidward's yard an absolute mess. So this one isn't exactly a full-blown episode, it's more of a short. However, I want to dissect the whole first season in its entirety, so of course this is going to get included. I gotta say, I feel like this short was really ballsy. It was the first and only episode to have absolutely no dialogue. The entire story is told through the characters' actions. This is also the first episode to show that Squidward and SpongeBob are neighbors. Though Squidward was in the first episode, as well as his house, it's not shown at that point that Squidward lives there. I really liked how the animation changed when SpongeBob sucked up all the water. They indicated the lack of water by showing an overall change in color for everything, which was really interesting in my opinion. I also love the way that SpongeBob slides out of his window and down the side of his house when he goes out to get the Reef Blower. Overall, I'd give this short a solid 7 out of 10. It was simple, straightforward, and kind of a bold move considering it's part of the very first episode and there's literally no dialogue at all. I honestly wasn't a big fan of this episode when I was younger, but looking back at it now, I enjoy it a lot more as an adult. Now we're going to move right on down the line and look at the next episode in release order, Tea at the Tree Dome. First of all, I love the title card for this episode. The font color and the background art complement each other really well in my opinion. The episode itself begins with SpongeBob alone in Jellyfish Fields trying to catch a jellyfish when he accidentally catches himself instead. He then overhears the sound of a struggle as he sees a squirrel wrestling with a clam.
Where have I seen this before? Here it is. Land squirrel. That little squirrel is in trouble.
Take that, you sorry old clam! Y'all need to learn some manners! You're about as ugly as homemade soup.
SpongeBob goes down to help the squirrel. He isn't actually of any help, but he definitely gives it his best shot. The squirrel is thankfully able to handle the clam herself.
Hey, you like karate too. Well, bye. Bow, 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 bow. Ah.
The squirrel, who we all know is named Sandy, introduces herself to SpongeBob for the first time and they compare their karate skills.
Take a gander at this.
Oh yeah? Watch this! Ah!
Sandy suggests that they could be tighter than bark on a tree, and they make very quick friends. SpongeBob asks about Sandy's helmet, and she explains that she needs it so she can breathe because it's full of air. SpongeBob tells her all about how he loves air, so Sandy invites him to come to her tree dome tomorrow to hang out. SpongeBob immediately runs straight to Patrick's house to ask him what air is.
What's air?
Huh?
I just met this girl. She wears a hat full of air.
Do you mean she puts on airs?
I guess so.
That's just fancy talk. If you want to be fancy, hold your pinky up like this.
The next day, we see SpongeBob go to Sandy's tree dome with Patrick over his shoulder, reminding him of the pinky.
Sandy, something's gone terribly wrong. There's no water in... Here.
Of course there's no water. Nothing but air.
SpongeBob acts like everything is okay, and he tells Sandy that he loves air. However, we can clearly see that SpongeBob is not doing well. His voice doesn't sound right, and it looks like he's drying out.
Weren't easy getting here neither. First, That's my treadmill. That's how I stay in tip-top shape.
Sandy and SpongeBob sit down at her picnic table to have some tea, and we can clearly tell that things aren't looking good for poor SpongeBob.
I brought you some flowers.
For me? How sweet. You okay?
Yes, I'm okay.
When Sandy goes to put the flowers in a vase, SpongeBob runs to the door to try and leave, but he convinces himself that it's gonna be okay and that he doesn't need water, so he sits right back down.
I don't need it. I don't need it. I definitely don't need it. I 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 need it!
SpongeBob cracks and ends up drinking the water that the flowers are in. He cries, calling himself a quitter as he runs for the door.
You can't leave now! You'll blow it!
Air is not good, Patrick! Air is not good!
You're just being shy. Don't worry, buddy. You're doing fine. I won't let you blow this.
Once Patrick realizes what's wrong, he runs for the door too, but unfortunately, neither of them can get the door open.
Come and get it! You're all gonna like this.
Sandy ends up putting fish bowls over their heads so they have water in the tree dome. She even puts some tea bags in the water so they can have tea with her too. This episode is another important one in the history of SpongeBob. This is the first time we're introduced to Sandy, who also ends up being one of SpongeBob's best friends. In this episode, we also learned the fact that SpongeBob is really into karate, which would play a role in plots of later episodes and be a big character trait of both SpongeBob and Sandy. This is also the first time we see Patrick talk about something he knows nothing about, as if he knows exactly what he's talking about, which would be an ongoing character trait of his as well. He tells SpongeBob that all this talk of air is just fancy talk, and SpongeBob takes Patrick's word as law. I don't expect all of you to relate to this, but after seeing this episode when I was younger, me and all my friends would run around the playground at school with our pinkies up like SpongeBob did in this episode, and we just thought it was the funniest thing ever. This is also the first episode where we see SpongeBob's love for jellyfishing. In the very beginning, we see him trying to catch a jellyfish, which again would be a continuing theme throughout the series. I also can't not bring up the animation of SpongeBob when he is looking at that vase of water. The way they show him drying out and looking all wrinkly is just classic. Nowadays, in the newer episodes of SpongeBob, they'll animate stuff like this in kind of a gross and grotesque manner just a little bit, but in this episode it was done tastefully and it added to the substance of the episode instead of just being like gross out humor. I also love the gag at the end with the actual sponge and starfish laying on what looks like AstroTurf. Classic SpongeBob humor. Overall, I'd give this episode a solid 9 out of 10. I love this episode just as much as I did when I was a kid, and it still holds up all these years later. We're gonna move right along and check out the next episode, Bubble Stand. This episode would see SpongeBob stepping outside, taking a deep breath, and noting how peaceful it is outside.
What a wonderful day. The sun is out, the water is shimmering, scallops are chirping. So peaceful.
Can we lower the volume, please? I can't work with all that racket going on.
Oh, sure thing, Squidward.
SpongeBob builds a stand where you can spend 25 cents to blow a bubble. Squidward thinks it's the dumbest thing ever and that only an idiot would pay to blow a bubble. Just then, of course, Patrick comes out of his rock and walks right up to the stand. Sadly, he doesn't have a quarter, so he has to borrow one from SpongeBob. Patrick tries his hardest to blow a bubble, but sadly, he just can't get the hang of it. SpongeBob offers to give Patrick lessons for 25 cents. Yet again, he has to borrow a quarter from SpongeBob, and SpongeBob gets right into the lesson.
Okay, Patrick, it's all in the technique. First go like this. Spin around, stop. Double take 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then pelvic thrust. Woo! Woo! Stop on your right foot, don't forget it. Now it's time to bring it around town. Bring it around town. Then you do this, then this, and this, then that, and this, and that, and this, and that, and then...
SpongeBob proceeds to blow the most artistic bubbles that you will ever see in your life, including ducks, ice cubes, a caterpillar, and a tugboat.
Oh!
Huh?
SpongeBob even blows an entire life-sized elephant bubble.
It's a giraffe!
Squidward comes out of his house absolutely pissed off and he yells at SpongeBob and Patrick. SpongeBob shows off his technique to Squidward and blows a cute little butterfly bubble. Squidward shames them, telling them that it's dumb, and they trudge head down into SpongeBob's house. Then Squidward picks up the bubble wand and starts to blow a bubble, but SpongeBob catches him. He offers Squidward lessons, but Squidward denies, saying that it's easy. He pays the 25 cents and shoots his shot.
Here's your 25 cents. Watch and learn. Wait. One more time. Here, wait.
Squidward then proceeds to spend like $5 in quarters blowing failed bubbles.
The pelvic woo!
Don't forget the woo! Squidward!
Listen to Sponge!
Technique! You're not doing the technique.
Squidward gets mad at them for yelling about the technique, so he mockingly starts doing it.
Oh, stop! On your right foot. Don't forget it. Then bring it around town. And a little of this, a little of that, a little of this, that. And then...
After doing the technique, Squidward ends up blowing the biggest bubble that they have ever seen. He dismisses the fact that the technique helped with the bubble and says it's in his genes as he goes inside to play his clarinet while SpongeBob and Patrick are cheering him on. Squidward ends up looking out the window to realize that he's floating away, but just then the bubble explodes. I gotta take a second and say that it's a lot of fun to go back through these old episodes and see the development of important character traits that would follow these characters through the next 2 decades onward. This is the episode where we learn about SpongeBob's impressive ability to blow bubbles. He's very enthusiastic about it, as he should be with that level of skill. This episode also expands upon some of the character traits of Squidward as well. Before this episode, we just saw Squidward not wanting to have SpongeBob get hired at the Krusty Krab and having a speechless role in the Reef Blower short. But in this episode, we learn that Squidward is a conceited clarinet player who thinks that he's a lot better than he really is. We also get a glimpse at some of Squidward's art in the background, all of which are portraits of himself. He also refuses to let SpongeBob take credit for his technique when Squidward's bubble ends up being huge. Then, of course, bad things happen to Squidward in the end of the episode, and this would continue to be a common theme in this show. Even when Squidward does win, bad things pretty much always happen to him. It's very rare that we see a positive ending to a Squidward episode throughout the series. The first one that comes to mind would have to be Band Geeks, but again, we're focused on Season 1 for this video. This episode has such a good feel to it. It's not too complex, it has a simple premise, which is the one thing I love about these early episodes. A lot of them have a ton of substance and aspects to enjoy. This episode is a prime example. It takes place in SpongeBob and Squidward's front yards, and not a whole lot happens. Literally, SpongeBob builds a bubble stand and the 3 characters blow some bubbles. That's about it. But somehow the episode proceeds to be incredibly entertaining. It's impressive how they can pull that off, but boy do they do it well. Also, I can't stress enough how much I'm loving this hand-drawn animation style. I could go on and on about it, and I probably will throughout the rest of this video, but I just freaking love it. All in all, this episode is a solid 8 out of 10. It's pretty good, and it's definitely just as good as I remember it being when I was younger. This episode always made me want to go outside and blow bubbles as a kid, and I would always be disappointed that it was never as fun and cool as it was portrayed to be in the show. Up next, we have another truly iconic episode, Ripped Pants. This episode begins at the Goo Lagoon, with SpongeBob and Sandy soaking up some sun.
I'm Sandy.
Hey, Sandy, who am I? Hello, SpongeBob. Could you keep it down? I'm trying to be boring.
Just as SpongeBob has Sandy cracking up, Larry the Lobster comes up and invites them to go lift some weights. Larry and Sandy are extremely strong, and they compete lifting heavier and heavier weights to show off their massive feats of strength. SpongeBob tries to impress by lifting up a stick, but no one even bats an eye. SpongeBob feels threatened by Larry's impressive feats, and he ends up pulling a stunt of his own. He puts 2 marshmallows at the end of the stick and goes to lift it. Everyone finds it hilarious that SpongeBob ripped his pants. At first, SpongeBob thinks they're laughing at him, but when someone tells him that he is hilarious, he starts to think that they're laughing with him. Later on, we see SpongeBob playing volleyball with Sandy, Larry, and some other fish.
Oops! I guess I ripped my pants again.
After that, we see SpongeBob playing frisbee with everyone at the beach when he lets the frisbee hit him in the face and tells everyone that he ripped his pants again, which, again, everybody laughs about just like they did the first 2 times. Feeling on top of the world, SpongeBob starts beating the ripped pants joke like a dead horse.
How about Ripple? No thanks? I already got one. Is that a burger you're eating?
Why, yes, it is.
You know what would go good with that?
No, what?
Ripped pants.
At this point, everyone is starting to get annoyed by their repeated ripped pants joke. We cut to later on in the day when everyone's competing in a surfing competition. Larry does his trademark layback, Sandy is hanging 10, fingers, that is, and SpongeBob is ripping his pants again when the massive wave he's riding crashes in on him, and we cut to him laying on the shore with his surfboard looking like he washed up.
Hey look, a cardboard box washed up on the beach.
Holy fish paste! It's a guy!
Why? Why?
Come closer. I need.
What do you need?
A tailor. Because I ripped my pants! Ah!
Everyone is really disappointed in SpongeBob for pretending to drown and making a joke out of it. He ends up taking a moment in a changing tent to re-evaluate his decisions, and instead of reflecting on what he did wrong, he just decides to come up with a new joke.
Hey, everybody! Not ripped pants! Pants ripped off! Huh? Someone call the police! There's a pants thief on the loose!
Everyone has lost interest in SpongeBob at this point. He falls to the ground at the realization that Sandy would rather hang out with Larry. Even SpongeBob's pants walk away, wanting nothing to do with him.
Am I the biggest loser on the beach?
No, I am. I forgot to put on sunscreen.
Ouch.
No, I am. I got sand in my buns.
No, I'm the biggest loser on the beach. They buried me in the sand and forgot me.
SpongeBob starts to tell his newfound friends what happened to him in the form of a song.
When I ripped my pants, I thought that I had everybody on my side, but I went and blew it all sky high, and now she won't even spare a passing glance. All just because I ripped my pants.
SpongeBob sings a song with a positive message about being true to yourself and not acting like a fool to impress people. Sandy ends up running up to the stage that seems to have come out of nowhere, and she tells SpongeBob that the song is true and that if he wants to be her friend, he just has to be himself.
That was so righteous. Would you sign my pants?
Absolutely, buddy.
This episode is one that really stands out. It's the first time we meet Larry the Lobster. It's weird because he's made out to be kind of an antagonist. He seems like kind of a jerk who just wants to one-up SpongeBob and be cooler than he is, but in later episodes, Larry isn't really portrayed as an antagonist anymore. I kind of wish that in the earlier episodes there was more stories focused on Larry and SpongeBob working together as a team. I feel like there was a lot more potential for Larry as a side character that could have been utilized, but it is what it is. This episode really capitalized on SpongeBob's sense of humor. It showcased how SpongeBob tends to find one thing that is funny and just beat it like a dead horse. He got everyone to laugh about ripped pants one time, and after that it was non-stop ripped pants after ripped pants. As a kid, I really enjoyed SpongeBob's sand gags in the beginning. His impression of Squidward is just hilarious. That scene where he pretends to drown really stands out here too. The episode starts off all funny and lighthearted and very abruptly turns to serious and dark when the lifeguard thinks that SpongeBob drowned. I also find it hilarious that instead of starting life-saving procedures, the lifeguard just holds SpongeBob in his arms and cries. The episode is full of classic SpongeBob gags and I really appreciate that. All in all, I'd give this one a solid 7 out of 10. It was really an iconic episode, but there's some aspects that could have potentially been better. As a kid, this episode always made me feel kind of sad for SpongeBob, and I hated seeing him excluded when everyone turned on him, but on that same note, pretending to drown is really uncool. Up next, we are going to move on to another gem of an episode, Jellyfishing. This episode begins with a simple jellyfish swimming over SpongeBob's house. Him and Patrick see it fly by through some weird telescope that SpongeBob has, and they spring into action. The pair grab their jellyfishing nets and SpongeBob throws on his glasses as they head out to catch the jellyfish.
La 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 la.
They both get stung by the jellyfish and they end up rolling over to Squidward's front door. We see Squidward heading out with his bike and they stop to invite him to go jellyfishing. They even brought an extra net for him and everything.
Do you want to come with us?
Really? Jellyfishing with you guys? Oh, that would be the best day ever in my book. I would love to go jellyfishing. I can't think of anything I'd love to do more on my day off than go jellyfishing with my two best friends, SpongeBob and,
Patrick!
right. But I can't.
Squidward rides off on his bike while laughing about how dumb he thinks jellyfishing is. Due to being too preoccupied with laughing, he rides right into a jellyfish and it goes straight into his mouth. He spits it out and smacks it as it flies into his shirt, causing this to happen. After the traumatic accident, we see SpongeBob anxiously waiting for Squidward to get out of the hospital. We see him riding down the road on a wheelchair while wearing a full body cast, and SpongeBob calls Patrick to tell him that they're going to make sure he is greeted by his two best friends in the world.
Welcome home, Squidward!
Merry Christmas!
We're gonna make this your best day ever!
They decide to start his best day ever by feeding him some boiling hot soup. Patrick decides that he's going to blow on it to help cool it down.
Here we go! Oh, it's a little hot. Huh?
Before Squid can even have a single bite of his soup, SpongeBob decides that they're going to move on to some music from Squidward's very own clarinet. SpongeBob fails to play a single note because his lips are too dry, so he decides to moisten them up. Before SpongeBob can even play a single note, Patrick rips away the clarinet and says they're gonna move on. The two enthusiastically take Squidward out to Jellyfish Fields to do some jellyfishing.
Firmly grasp it in your hand. Firmly grasp it. Firmly grasp it! That ought to do it.
Squid just very angrily sits there and doesn't try to go for any jellyfish, so SpongeBob and Patrick decide that they're going to show him how it's done. When they both fail to catch a single jellyfish, Squidward ends up getting stung on the nose, which makes him angry, so he decides to go after the jellyfish that stung him. SpongeBob and Patrick cheer him on as he chases the jellyfish and ends up catching it. The massive jellyfish chases Squidward down and stings the living daylights out of him. The next day, we see SpongeBob and Patrick outside of Squidward's house waiting for him to come home from the hospital yet again.
Hey, Squid! How about that? Best day ever.
They apologize to Squidward for giving him a terrible best day ever, and they give him the jarred up jellyfish that he was trying to catch the day before. Squidward very angrily lets the jellyfish out of the jar, and it chases SpongeBob and Patrick down the road, stinging them.
Ow.
Now, this is an episode that I loved when I was a kid. I always enjoyed the episodes where SpongeBob and Patrick go jellyfishing, and this is the one that started it all. I love the way they animate the jellyfish in this show, and as a whole, Jellyfish Fields is a very aesthetically pleasing place. I also really enjoyed the way that they drew the soup that Patrick tried to feed to Squidward. I can't put my finger on it, but there's just something about it that I love. I also loved how they drew Squidward with his full body cast, literally from head to toe, even his nose was wrapped up, which is just awesome. Plus, that iconic scene where Patrick stabs the jellyfishing net through Squidward's hand. When I was a kid, it was kind of off-putting, but hilarious at the same time. All in all, this episode is another great one, and overall is just really kind on the eyes. I know that I sound like a broken record, but I just love the animation and aesthetics of early SpongeBob. Overall, this episode is a solid 9 out of 10, and it's definitely just as great as I remember it being. Now we're going to move on to the episode called Plankton. First of all, the music that plays along with the title card slaps so hard, and the color scheme of the title card is amazing as well. One thing I'd love to note with the animation of the show is the art style in the background. This kind of art pops up a lot in the series, and I don't know what it's called, but I love it. If anybody knows what it's called or the history of it, please let me know down in the comments. The episode begins at the Krusty Krab with SpongeBob whipping up a Krabby Patty for a customer by putting the ingredients in his body and in his pants.
And voila! It's under your nose!
You're killing me, SpongeBob. You really are.
SpongeBob passes the Krabby Patty to Squidward when it seems to start running off like it has a mind of its own.
Mr. Krabs, the Krabby Patty is haunted!
Avast, you patty pirate! This is no ghost. This is Plankton stealing me booty!
Mr. Krabs tosses Plankton out of the Krusty Krab and tells SpongeBob all about how Plankton has been trying to steal the Krabby Patty formula for years now. Later that night, SpongeBob leaves work, and while he's heading home, he hears someone calling out to him.
Young man. Yes, over here. Come on, boy, a little closer. Closer. Not that close! Ah! You blasted barnacle head!
Hi.
Plankton tries to butter up SpongeBob by giving him a golden spatula as he tries to gain his friendship. Plankton then tells SpongeBob that tomorrow is his birthday.
Tomorrow is my birthday. And you know what I'd like more than anything in the whole wide world?
A booster seat?
Booster seat, hot dog. No.
Plankton tells SpongeBob that the one thing he really wants for his birthday is a Krabby Patty.
Oh, I'll get a Krabby Patty. And you're gonna hand deliver it to me personally, you weak-minded fool!
Later on at home, SpongeBob's going to bed when Plankton shows up, having seemingly broken into SpongeBob's house.
SpongeBob, you will be mine.
Plankton crawls into one of the holes on SpongeBob's body and finds his way into SpongeBob's brain, which we learn is just kind of free floating around his head. He tapes SpongeBob's brain to his, interior floor. He then proceeds to straight up stab this device into SpongeBob's brain, which gives Plankton full control over SpongeBob's body.
Let me just grab my pants. Guess I'm not wearing any pants today. I guess I'm not using the door either.
Plankton proceeds to walk SpongeBob's body right through the side of Squidward's house. It blows my mind that he's able to do this considering how weak SpongeBob is. He can literally not even pick up a stick with marshmallows on it, but can somehow break a hole in the side of Squidward's stone house.
Shut your mouth, you mediocre clarinet player.
Mediocre?
You pretentious little insignificant artist. Your sniveling creations are worth less than a protozoan's waste.
After giving Squidward a thorough roasting, Plankton ends up getting found out by SpongeBob when he rolls his eyes into the back of his head like he's the Undertaker. Plankton continues to walk him all the way to the Krusty Krab, where they leave with a Krabby Patty, heading directly for the chum bucket.
There's no one here.
Don't remind me. Brace yourself, SpongeBob. This is my lab. And this is my laboratory. And did I ever show you my record player?
No matter how hard SpongeBob fights it, Plankton forces him to walk over to his analyzer, which tells him the exact ingredients of whatever falls into it.
Seaweed, 50% sea, 50% weed.
In a very dramatic manner, Plankton asks SpongeBob if he has any last words, and he takes a moment to talk about the Krabby Patty in a very desirable manner.
With your tasty, juicy, scrumptious, warm, steamy goodness.
Steamy?
I'll never forget your 100% all-secret patty, secretly assembled with undersea cheese, pickle, lettuce, tomato, onion, all secretly steaming between two fluff...
Come to Papa! Oh boy.
Plankton, 1% evil, 99% hot gas.
Well, this stinks.
Having been freed from Plankton's clutches, SpongeBob happily walks out of the lab and out of the chum bucket, leaving Plankton stuck in the analyzer machine. As I said, this episode is one of my favorites. It's the first time we see Plankton and the first time a proper antagonist is introduced into the show. Plankton is a really interesting character in my opinion. He is just as evil as he is small, and the combination of both makes him a relatively harmless antagonist for the most part. Sure, this time he got really close to getting the formula, but other than that, most of his plots don't get anywhere as close as this one did. One thing I absolutely love about this episode is the whole record player gag with Plankton. I can't even explain why, but the way he keeps pulling out the record player that plays his evil theme song is just hilarious to me, and it's a gag that I really wish they kept going into later episodes. In this episode, Plankton really is funny too. He gets a few bits of witty banter and makes a few jokes that appeal to the rather dry sense of humor, almost like dad jokes. That's another character trait that didn't continue very much past this episode, and I really wish that it would have. I like the funny Plankton. I also love how they use Plankton's size as an opportunity to play with the animation of different areas. The big example in this episode being the inside of SpongeBob's head. SpongeBob isn't a big character by any means, but when you're as small as Plankton, the inside of SpongeBob's head seems massive, and I love the way they animated it like he was in a big yellow room that had holes in it. I also love the way that Plankton absolutely roasted Squidward to a crisp. To this day, I still love using the term protozoic waste, and it's all thanks to Plankton. Overall, this episode truly is a gem in my opinion, and I'd give it a solid 10 out of 10. It's truly a great episode, and it's even better than I remember it being when I was a kid. Up next, we're going to look at an episode called Naughty Nautical Neighbors. This is an episode that really made me hate Squidward a little bit. It all begins with Squidward having made a souffle that has a little depiction of himself sitting on a throne at the top. As he goes to dig in, he's bothered by silly giggling coming from outside.
Hi, Patrick.
I gotta note how like 2 episodes ago Patrick couldn't even blow a simple bubble, but now all of a sudden he can blow bubbles that make sound. Squidward, who also couldn't blow a bubble a few episodes ago, pours his souffle liquid into a dish and mixes it up as he proceeds to blow bubbles of his own just to mess with them.
Patrick, you are the dumbest idiot it has ever been my misfortune to know.
SpongeBob is caught off guard and confused by how Patrick suddenly seemed to turn hostile towards him.
Yeah, well, I think you're ugly. Yellow is ugly.
Patrick, what are you talking about?
Squidward starts putting out bubble after bubble of insults, and it leads to SpongeBob and Patrick straight up yelling insults at each other.
And that makes you a big dummy, you dummy!
Yeah, well, that means that, so are you.
You're a turkey!
What's that?
That's what you are!
SpongeBob storms off to his house and he slams the door. Patrick proceeds to do the same thing, except instead of a door, he slams his rock down. Patrick ends up coming to the rescue when Squidward is blue and choking, and he proceeds to give mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to Squidward.
I win!
Squidward hops up enthusiastically saying, and I quote, "You're a real lifesaver, friend." Patrick starts acting like Squidward is his new best friend, while SpongeBob watches through the window jealous. Back at Squidward's house, him and Patrick are having the time of their lives as Patrick sleeps to Squidward's clarinet playing. Meanwhile, SpongeBob sadly sits alone at home.
I got plenty of friends. I can name 3 right off the bat. The gang's all here. Oh!
Squidward drags sleeping Patrick out of his house, but he throws out his back while dragging him out, which gives SpongeBob the chance to come to the rescue. Squidward tries to run away while SpongeBob does a long dive directly into his back.
I feel great. Thanks, SpongeBob. You're a real friend.
Friend.
No, I didn't mean that, no.
After helping his back, SpongeBob starts acting like Squidward is his best friend. Instead of falling asleep on him, SpongeBob decides that he's gonna play some music with Squidward.
Squidward is my best friend in the world. Squidward is my best friend in the sea. Squidward
Likes Patrick more than SpongeBob.
Angered by Patrick showing up out of nowhere, SpongeBob smashes the instrument that he's playing, which he calls a bassinet, yet that's definitely not what it's called. Squidward throws SpongeBob out of his house and he heads to the bathroom to wash up.
Hey, buddy, I warmed it up for you.
Patrick, get out and put some clothes on.
What's the matter, Squidward, old buddy? Oh! So this is what I find, huh? My best friend and my ex-best friend and rubber bath toys!
Squidward realizes the mess that he's made by pitting SpongeBob and Patrick against each other. He hides in a trash can while he comes up with a quick plan to get the two friends back together and out of his hair. He sends each of them an invitation to a dinner party at his house.
I'd much rather dine with you than that lousy... Say, what gives? I'm not sitting near that maniac.
Me neither. This was a setup.
Squidward pours them some soda, and they compete with each other to have Squidward pour them cup after cup of soda until Squidward runs out and has to go to the store. He leaves the two behind to chat. The two of them laugh up bubbles until Squidward's house literally explodes. On the bright side though, SpongeBob and Patrick are friends again.
Psst, I think he's jealous.
How pathetic.
Oh, my back.
Like I said, this episode makes me hate Squidward, but that doesn't take away from the fact that this is a quality episode. There's a lot to love here. First of all, the way they animated that art on top of Squidward's souffle in the beginning was awesome. I love the sunset backdrop and Squidward figure on top. It's a good little touch. I also really enjoyed the way Patrick is animated after he slams the rock down and he looks like an accordion. This scene always cracked me up as a kid. Then the part where Squidward is choking on the fork and you see his throat as he tries to swallow. I also really appreciated the way they portrayed Squidward going unconscious too. The way his eyes roll back to the KO and there's camera flashes in the background before he falls to the ground and turns blue is just kind of an amazing sequence of animation. Sure, Squidward almost dying is morbid as hell, but you gotta admit the animation was pretty tight. Another thing that I can't not mention here is the song SpongeBob plays with Squidward. To this day, it still gets stuck in my head randomly, which is hilarious because I haven't seen this episode in years, but still that song somehow will pop into my head. I also really loved that final scene where we see SpongeBob and Patrick all fat from drinking so much soda. The animation of SpongeBob's rolls are freaking amazing. It kind of reminds me of that one episode of Ed, Edd and Eddy where the Eds sit in that kiddie pool for way too long and they end up all swollen and waterlogged. Overall, I gotta give this episode an 8 out of 10. It's really good, and honestly, it's just a little better than I remember it being when I was a kid. I will admit though, when I was a kid, I was so focused on how much Squidward pissed me off and not so much on the quality of this episode. Up next, we're checking out another classic episode that was full of firsts. Boating School. This episode begins with SpongeBob waking up in the morning to his loud foghorn alarm, as per usual. He gets out of bed already fully dressed and is flung to his calendar where he has a boating school exam marked down. He heads off saying that he feels capable.
I'm ready. Squidward! Squidward!
What?
I'm ready, Squidward!
Ready to move?
No, I'm ready to pass my boating test! I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready.
SpongeBob rides his unicycle to school and throws it right in the dumpster, confident that he's getting his license today. He walks up to school and we see his teacher, Mrs. Puff, looking really unexcited to go on a driving exam with SpongeBob. She gets out and they begin the oral portion of the exam.
Okay, number 1. What is the front of the boat?
The bow.
What is the back?
Stern.
Number 3. Right is...
Starboard. Port, skipper, deck, cabin, galley, keel, 1924.
You've passed the oral test. What a surprise.
After passing with flying colors, Mrs. Puff gets in the boat and puts her helmet on, preparing for the worst. SpongeBob seems terrified at the idea of actually getting into the boat. All of his knowledge of driving goes right out the window as he forgets how to even put the boat on the track in the first place.
Now, what do you do next?
Floor it?
Yes. No! No! Don't floor it!
Floor it?
No! No, no! Don't floor it!
Okay, floor it!
No!
Oh, SpongeBob!
Why?
Later that day after the crash, SpongeBob is laying in bed and talking to Gary about how bad he feels about not passing the exam again.
SpongeBob, this is Star Ranger. Over.
What is it, Patrick?
I got a surprise for you.
Oh, Patrick, I'm not in the mood.
Get out of bed.
Okay, now what, Patrick?
Go to your closet for a surprise.
Okay, I'm at the closet.
Listen carefully. What's pink and square at the same time?
I don't know, Patrick.
Patrick SquarePants!
SpongeBob confides in Patrick, saying how upset he is that he can't pass the boating exam because he just can't think straight. Patrick says that he is great at thinking straight, and he suggests that he let Patrick do the thinking for him as he puts a walkie-talkie inside of SpongeBob's head and says that he'll tell him exactly what to do while he's taking the test, and Patrick covers up the antenna on his head with a cowboy hat.
Testing! Testing, 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 testing! Testing! Ah! Do you read?
Sponge to Pat, I read you loud and clear. Over.
Got your apple ready? Lucky undergarments? Hold on. Bingo! Oh, here comes Mrs. Puff! Act natural! No, get in the boat!
Mrs. Puff comes up, being dropped off via ambulance, and she gets in the car, yet again looking unexcited as she prepares for the driving test.
Whoa! What?
It's okay. It's only the boat.
The boat? You started the boat?
I think so.
Mrs. Puff is blown away by the fact that SpongeBob seems to be doing great, all thanks to the instructions from Patrick. We get a little montage of SpongeBob and Mrs. Puff having a great time on the driving test, going through some really ridiculous obstacles. Meanwhile, Patrick is putting on a pair of SpongeBob's pants and reading his diary. At the end of the test, Mrs. Puff starts joking with SpongeBob about how he's doing so well.
What's your secret? A little radio in your head? Oh, and under that hat is some kind of antenna, and some guy miles away from here is giving you all the answers. Oh, yes, but that would be cheating.
At the realization that he's cheating, SpongeBob breaks and freaks out. He admits that he's cheating and that Mrs. Puff is 100% right about the antenna and the guy giving him answers. Meanwhile, Patrick just straight up runs out of SpongeBob's house crying.
It's quite all right. You can cheat.
No, I'm cheating.
That way, SpongeBob.
I'm cheating.
Cheat that way. That way.
Cheater, pumpkin eater.
It's okay to cheat that way. That way. Cheat that way.
SpongeBob lets go of the wheel and the boat goes all over the place, however it doesn't pass the finish line. Yet again, SpongeBob crashes the boat, causing Mrs. Puff to get taken to the hospital via ambulance yet again.
Okay, boys, take me away.
Don't worry, Mrs. Puff. I'll try harder next semester.
Sadly, SpongeBob doesn't have his license, but thankfully, Gary was nice enough to save SpongeBob's unicycle from the dumpster, and the episode ends with SpongeBob riding off to surprise Mrs. Puff at the hospital. This episode is such a good one. First things first, this is the first appearance of Mrs. Puff in the series. It's also the first time we see SpongeBob's unicycle, and that unicycle, oh my god, I love it. It's so fitting that a unique and weird character like SpongeBob rides a unicycle around. You may not have noticed it, but this is also the first appearance of the soundbite of Fred the Fish yelling, "My leg!"
Oh, SpongeBob! Why?
We don't actually see Fred in this episode, but it's known that he is the one who yells about his leg. I also really appreciated Patrick and the Patrick SquarePants gag. The way his legs look sticking out of the end of the pants is super funny. Also, one thing I absolutely adore that happened a lot in early SpongeBob is when they zoom in on a specific object and the animation gets all detailed. Specifically in this episode, it happens when Patrick checks SpongeBob's lucky underwear. I also got a good chuckle at the crazy tasks that were in SpongeBob's driving test. literally driving off of a jump through a flaming hoop, doing wheelies, and straight up driving upside down. Overall, this episode was full of wacky antics and solid humor, and it was also iconic, having multiple first-time appearances. On the whole, I'd give this episode a solid 9 out of 10. It was a great episode all in all. Up next, we're going to check out another truly iconic episode, Pizza Delivery. This episode is one of my all-time favorites. Even the title card is freaking amazing. I love the color scheme and the music that they went with. It's very fitting for this episode. The episode begins with closing time at the Krusty Krab. Squidward is waiting to go home when the phone rings.
I got it! Coming!
Hello?
No!
Sorry, sir, we're closed.
Ahoy there, Krusty Krab! How can I help you? Pizza? Of course we have pizza!
Mr. Krabs.
Our delivery squid will bring it right over.
Mr. Krabs takes a plate of Krabby Patties and smacks it into the shape of a pizza and tasks SpongeBob and Squidward with delivering it to the customer, even though they don't offer delivery. Squidward decides that SpongeBob is going to drive, but SpongeBob says that he can't because he still doesn't have his license.
Shift into reverse, SpongeBob.
Reverse. Oh yeah, reverse. Huh?
Back it up!
Back it up!
Give me the wheels, SpongeBob! Give me the wheels!
Backing up, backing up.
SpongeBob has a full-blown freak out and he keeps backing up till the car straight up runs out of gas.
Well, you backed up. And you know what? I think we're out of gas. And you know what else? We're in the middle of nowhere!
And you know what else? I think the pizza's getting cold.
And the pizza's cold!
Somehow, Squidward kicks the boat and the gas gauge goes up to full and the boat drives off on its own, leaving SpongeBob and Squidward stranded.
The Krusty Krab pizza is the pizza for you and me. The Krusty Krab pizza is the pizza.
And my feet are killing me.
SpongeBob starts trying out some old pioneer tricks that he saw in a movie. He listens to the ground and hears a 16-wheel truck coming down the road.
Now I can show you how the pioneers hitchhiked.
Fresh and break dancer!
At the last second, Squidward pushes SpongeBob out of the way from getting hit. They continue and straight up walk into a massive windstorm. SpongeBob is getting blown everywhere and he refuses to drop the pizza.
Will you let go of that stupid pizza already?
I can't, it's for the customer.
Who cares about the customer?
I do.
Well, I don't.
Squidward.
As SpongeBob is flying around, Squidward holds onto his ankles and the wind ends up sucking them into a tornado that spits them off into the distance where there is no road. Squidward starts panicking because he doesn't know which way to go.
I think town's this way.
Oh, don't tell me, Jethro. The pioneers.
That's right. Moss always points to civilization.
That way? That way there? So let me get this straight. You think that we should go that way?
Yep.
Well, then I'm going this way.
Huh?
Of course, Squidward walks them in the opposite direction of town, but hey, it makes for some good hijinks, of course.
The Krusty Krab pizza is the pizza absolutively. Pizza. Pizza.
Krusty Krab, yeah. Pizza is the pizza, yeah, for you and me.
SpongeBob and Squidward walk for hours until they're exhausted and starving.
The pioneers would eat coral. No, maybe it wasn't coral. Maybe it was sand. No, mud.
Give me the pizza!
Wait, I remember now, it was coral!
Squidward is fed up and wants SpongeBob to give him the pizza so he can eat it, but SpongeBob refuses and he is adamant that it's for the customer.
Sure is a fine-looking pizza.
Yeah.
What's that? Is that the cheese?
Yeah.
And the pepperoni?
Yeah.
Oh, looks good, huh?
When SpongeBob refuses to give it to Squidward, they end up fighting as Squidward chases him around trying to get the pizza. Just when Squidward finally catches him, SpongeBob starts celebrating them being saved.
Save, 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 yeah, we are saved.
That's just a stupid boulder.
It's not just a boulder. It's a rock.
Apparently, the pioneers used to ride these babies for miles, and SpongeBob is going to use it to drive them to civilization. He successfully drives them to the customer's house as they deliver the pizza.
Where's my drink?
What drink?
My drink? My Diet Dr. Kelp? Don't tell me you forgot my drink!
But you didn't order any.
How am I supposed to eat this pizza without my drink? Didn't you ever once think of the customer? You call yourself a delivery boy? Well, I ain't buying!
SpongeBob feels defeated, and he walks back to the rock crying as Squidward tries to comfort him, telling him that it's okay. But then, Squidward decides to take matters in his own hands.
Look, I told your little friend I ain't paying for that!
Well, this one's on the...
Did he change his mind?
He sure did. Ate the whole thing in one bite.
After Squidward beat that guy's ass with the pizza, he tells SpongeBob to take him home, but unfortunately, SpongeBob says they have just enough time to make it back to work as he easily reverses the rock and drives across the street to the Krusty Krab, which is where the episode ends. There is so much in this episode that's iconic. It's truly a prominent crown jewel in the collection of Season 1 episodes. First of all, the song that SpongeBob sings while he's walking with the pizza is definitely a banger. It's another one of those songs that will randomly get stuck in my head, especially when I'm walking anywhere. It's so freaking good. Other than that, the animation of the pizza is absolutely fire. For a flat, two-dimensional pizza, it looks so freaking delicious. Also, the way they drew SpongeBob and Squidward as they're staring at it is fantastic. The look on their faces as they stare down at that pizza is just hilarious. Moving on from there, I can't help but bring up the rock. The way SpongeBob can't drive a boat to save his life, but can drive a rock with ease is just awesome. It's a character trait that I wish they would have played with a little more later in the series. We would never see SpongeBob driving a rock again, but I wish we did. It's just so bizarre and weird, and I love it. I definitely have to give this episode a straight 10 out of 10. This episode's just as good as it always has been, and sometimes I think it just gets better with age, to be honest. Next up, we're going to finish off this video by checking out the episode Home Sweet Pineapple. This episode begins with a bunch of little worms jumping their way across Bikini Bottom and eating everything in their path.
Oh, dang nematodes!
The thirsty nematodes end up making their way to SpongeBob's pineapple and using straws to suck all the liquid out of it. Everything in SpongeBob's house starts to shrink as they suck up all of the liquid.
Hooray, Gary! We're finally huge! Huh? Wait a minute! Oh, no!
SpongeBob panics, not knowing what to do. He tries calling Squidward for help, to no avail.
I know! I'll call Squidward! He'll know what to do!
Hello?
Squidward!
Is it time already for you to ruin my day?
Squidward, help me! My house is shrinking! I woke up this morning and it was getting smaller!
Is it time already to ruin Squid's day?
The only thing the nematodes leave behind of his house is a little pebble. SpongeBob is absolutely heartbroken. Meanwhile, Squidward is just straight ecstatic and straight up throwing a party in his house to celebrate SpongeBob moving somewhere else. SpongeBob says that he's gonna have to move back in with his parents, and Patrick tells SpongeBob that they should just build him a new house instead. They finish up the house pretty quick, and it's not quite as they had planned it to be.
We're done!
Yeah! So, what do you think?
I wish I lived there!
Really?
No!
One bedroom?
SpongeBob gets upset again, thinking that he's gonna have to move back in with his parents, but then Patrick suggests that he just move in with him. That night, SpongeBob spends his first night living under Patrick's rock. SpongeBob finds it nearly impossible to sleep in between the sound of Patrick snoring so loudly, fighting over the rock as if it were a blanket, and drooling so much that SpongeBob soaks it all up. SpongeBob puts a cork in Patrick's mouth to stop the drool, which backfires on him.
Spiders! Spiders! Get them off me! Get them off me! Get them off me!
Wake up! It's me!
After living with Patrick goes horribly, SpongeBob goes over to Squidward's house to try to crash with him.
Squidward. Squidward?
Oh, wow, what?
Squidward, could we stay here a couple of days or a month or two?
Oh, yeah, well, whatever.
Thanks. Thanks, Squidward. Squidward, can you scoot over a little?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Squidward finally snaps awake and he kicks SpongeBob out once he realizes what's going on. The next day, Squid jumps out of bed with a pep in his step as he celebrates the day SpongeBob is moving.
Don't worry, Squidward. I'll come visit you.
Don't try to cheer me up, SpongeBob. Please.
Here come my parents.
SpongeBob, hi, honey, we're here!
SpongeBob's parents roll up to pick him up, and SpongeBob asks if he can have a minute to say goodbye. He walks over and he puts the little pebble in the ground and sheds a tear onto it.
Come on, SpongeBob!
Goodbye, Patrick. Goodbye, Bikini Bottom.
Just then, the pebble that was put into the ground starts sprouting roots, and a massive pineapple grows within seconds and drops fully furnished, almost like an exact replica of SpongeBob's house.
Aw, Squidward! Isn't this great? I'm back forever! Forever?
This episode is another one that marked an important piece of SpongeBob history. I'm pretty sure that this is the first time we actually see Fred the fish on screen. I could totally be wrong, but I don't remember seeing him at all in the last few episodes. Correct me if I'm wrong though, of course, but I think this might be the first time we see him. This episode also marks the first time that we see SpongeBob's parents in the show. On a side note, I love how SpongeBob is all bright and yellow, meanwhile his parents are darker, indicating that they're older and probably used sponges. Meanwhile, SpongeBob himself looks like a nice, fresh, barely used sponge. I also really loved the scene where SpongeBob soaks up all of Patrick's drool and he gets all big and bulbous. It's different to see SpongeBob looking all thick and nose all plump when he's all full of water, and I think that the way they portrayed that in their animation was pretty cool. Overall, I'd give this episode a 9 out of 10. It's a fantastic episode that really goes well with the other episode it's paired with in syndication, Pizza Delivery. Overall, this episode is just as good as I remember it being when I was younger. And I think that's where we're going to leave off for now. We made a good chunk of ground covering a solid amount of episodes in this season. If you want to see me continue with further episodes in Season 1 of SpongeBob, let me know in the comments down below. I really want to stress the meaning behind this video is just to take a lighthearted stroll down memory lane as we revisit the greatest part of SpongeBob history, and I really hope that it brought back some good memories for you and made you feel positive feelings. Watching these episodes makes me feel good, and I hope that by proxy, watching this video makes you feel good too. But what do you think? Do you have a favorite episode from Season 1? Is Season 1 your favorite season as well? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love hearing your guys' feedback. Drop a like on this video and give praise to the YouTube algorithm in hopes that it promotes this video to everyone else, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.